He first noticed her in the reflection of his motorcycle mirror, small, fragile, and impossibly out of place against the roar of engines and the hard leather silhouettes of men society crossed the street to avoid. The sun was setting behind her, turning her tiny shadow into something long and trembling, and for a strange, breath-stealing second it looked like she didn't belong to this world at all, as if she was some ghost of a child wandering into territories meant for scars, fists, and men who lived on the fringes. He shook the thought away, revved the engine, and yet the girl remained, always a few steps behind, always watching him with eyes too full of hurt to belong to someone so young. It was only later, after days of this strange, silent pursuit, that he would realize those eyes were carrying a truth heavy enough to bring a hardened biker to his knees, the kind of truth that cracks open the toughest armor and forces a man to face what he's buried far too deep. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and the power of second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. From the outside, Rafe looked like everything people feared: a towering frame draped in leather tattoo, curling up his arms like old battle maps, and a stare sharp enough to slice through steel. He had spent years cultivating that image, turning himself into a wall no one dared to touch. It was easier that way, cleaner, safer. People who kept their distance couldn't break your heart. People who didn't expect goodness from you couldn't be disappointed. He lived by the roar of engines and the cold certainty of asphalt beneath his wheels, never imagining anything or anyone could slow him down. But life has a way of choosing its own moment to intervene, and for Rafe, that moment appeared in the form of a trembling child who somehow kept finding him, as if the universe had tied a string between their souls long before either of them knew. The first day he saw her, she stood outside the old mechanic shop where he and the rest of the Hells Angels chapter often gathered. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her hair was tangled, her clothes were thin despite the cold, and she clutched something to her chest, a stuffed animal worn down to threads. Rafe tried ignoring her, chalking it up to the kind of curiosity kids have when they wander too far from home. But the next day she was there again, this time closer, watching from behind a telephone pole. And the day after that, she sat on the curb across the street, her thin arms wrapped around her knees, as if anchoring herself against some invisible storm. Every time he tried to look away, something pulled his attention back to her, some silent plea in the way she lingered. Eventually, it wasn't just Rafe who noticed. His brothers would nudge him, laughing at first, telling him he had a shadow, teasing him with good nature jabs the way hardened men often do when they don't know how to handle something innocent. But Rafe didn't find it funny. He felt the weight of her presence in a way he didn't understand. He would catch himself scanning the streets before riding out, searching for that small shape, almost hoping she wouldn't be there, yet feeling strangely relieved when she was. It wasn't normal for a child to be shadowing a biker, especially one known for fists, not softness. Something was wrong. Something was deeply, desperately wrong. He tried to approach her once, walking slowly, keeping his voice steady, lowering himself so he wouldn't look so towering. She didn't run. She didn't smile. She simply stared at him, as if memorizing his face, as if trying to decide whether he was real or some last chance the world had offered her. But when he gently asked her name, she backed away, shaking her head violently, clutching her stuffed animal as if it were her only shield. Then she turned and ran. Rafe stood there feeling helpless, stunned at how that single moment those frightened eyes had lodged something sharp and unfamiliar into his chest. Over the next week he noticed details he had missed before, the bruises fading along her small arms, the limp she tried to hide, the way she shivered in the bitter wind with no coat. She was hungry. He could see it in the way she watched people walking out of the diner next door, her gaze lingering on their food, with a longing that seemed to scrape against her bones. And every time Rafe tried to ignore it, a deeper voice inside him reminded him of a past he had buried so ruthlessly that even he pretended it never happened. He had once been that child. He had once been the kid with bruises hidden under shirts, the kid who kept quiet because adults never listened, the kid who learned early that some homes were houses of pain rather than safety. He had run from his own demons until he grew big enough, angry enough, and broken enough to become a demon himself. But deep inside, in some small corner of himself he tried to suffocate, the memory remained. And now this girl, this fragile mirror of everything he had once been, had found him. One evening, the wind sharp with winter's edge, Rafe saw her again. She was closer than ever before, standing only a few feet from where he was loading supplies onto his bike. Her lips were cracked from cold, her eyes glassy with exhaustion, and her hands trembled around the frayed neck of her stuffed animal. Rafe froze. She looked like someone who had reached the end of whatever strength a small body could possess. She took one step toward him, then another, then stopped right in front of him. And then, with a soft, broken motion, she held the stuffed animal out to him. Not to give it away, no. She held it out as if showing him a secret. Sewn into its chest with uneven stitches was a piece of paper folded tightly. The moment he gently opened it, she flinched, but she didn't run this time. She watched him, her breathing shallow, her entire world balanced on the hope that he would understand. And he did. The paper was a note, messy handwriting, words scribbled in desperation. It read like a cry trapped between lines. It spoke of fear, of escape, of a place she needed to get away from. It didn't explain everything, but it was enough to twist something deep inside Rafe and pull memories like chains from his past. He realized then that she wasn't following him by accident. She had chosen him. Out of everyone in the city, out of all the strangers she could have run to, she had picked the man everyone avoided. Because to her, danger wasn't a biker gang. Danger was home, and whatever she had endured there, she believed, God help her, that Rafe was safer than anything she had ever known. That belief shattered him. It cracked open the armor he had built for decades, leaving him standing bare beneath the weight of a child's impossible trust. That night Rafe made a decision he never thought he'd make. He brought her to the safe house the club used when things got messy. The other men stared in stunned silence when they saw him walk in with a shivering, terrified girl in his arms. But one look into Rafe's eyes, and they asked no questions. Some histories you didn't need spoken to understand. They gave her blankets, food, warmth. They made jokes in soft voices, clumsy attempts to make her smile. And slowly, painfully, slowly, she began to relax, like a field of tense muscles finally loosening after years of strain. Over the next few days, Rafe dug for answers in his quiet, determined way. It wasn't simple. Kids who have known trauma don't talk easily. But she didn't need words. Rafe pieced together the story through gestures, drawings, flinches when certain topics came up. What he learned made his blood boil. She had been living in a home that masqueraded as normal from the outside, but hid a storm of violence within its walls: neglect, cruelty, fear. Her mother, lost in her own darkness, couldn't protect her. Her stepfather, Rafe didn't even like thinking about him. The man who should have protected her was instead the source of her nightmares. She had tried to run before, but every attempt failed. This time, she had followed the only person she saw who looked strong enough to fight the monsters in her world. And Rafe knew exactly why she had chosen him. He had the look of someone who could protect, the look of someone who could break things, people, doors, anything blocking the way. But she didn't know that behind that look was a man who had once needed saving too. And in some strange, poetic twist of fate, helping her was helping him reclaim pieces of himself he thought were lost. Rafe made calls, quiet, careful ones. Not to police, they often failed kids like her. He called people he trusted more than the law. People who dealt in shadows but used them to protect the vulnerable. They gathered evidence. They watched the house she escaped from. They documented. They ensured that when the authorities stepped in, there would be no loopholes, no second chances for the man who hurt her. And in the meantime, Rafe stayed by her side. He didn't hover, didn't hush. He sat near, always within sight, giving her the space to approach him when she wanted to, and slowly she did. She began sitting next to him while he fixed bikes. She handed him tools with small hands that no longer shook as much. She leaned her head against his arm when nightmares woke her. Each tiny gesture carved deep into him, reshaping the man he had been into someone he never thought he could become. When the day came for the authorities to intervene, Rafe didn't let her out of his sight. He stood beside her as officials took statements, as paperwork was filed, as the path toward a new life was carved out. She never let go of his hand, not once, and Rafe, who once swore he needed no one, held on as if letting go would break the world apart. Then came the moment that shattered him completely. A social worker gently knelt in front of the girl and said she would be taken to a safe foster home temporarily until long-term arrangements were made. The girl nodded. But instead of stepping forward, she turned to Rafe. She reached for his leather vest, bearing the Hell's Angels insignia, and tugged it softly, then pointed to her chest, then to him, then to the vest again. She wasn't trying to take it. She wasn't trying to wear it. She was trying to show him. She belonged with him, belonged to the one man who had protected her without expectation. Rafe's vision blurred. He dropped to his knees and pulled her into his arms. A man known for being unbreakable broke. A man known for fists cried. His tears fell into her tangled hair as he realized she wasn't just asking for safety, she was asking for him. Asking him to be the anchor her life had never given her. And he knew without hesitation that he couldn't walk away. Not from her. Not ever again. With the help of legal teams, social workers, and his club brothers standing as witnesses to his transformation, Rafe began the long process of applying to become her guardian. It wasn't easy. His past was messy, complicated, full of shadows, but he fought. He attended every meeting, completed every course, provided every reference. He opened his life, his history, and his vulnerabilities to strangers because he finally had someone worth fighting for in the light, not the dark. Months later, the day the papers were approved, he lifted her into his arms and felt a sense of purpose he had never known. She clung to him with the same trust she had shown the night she followed him for help, but now it wasn't desperation, it was home. And Rafe, the man who once rode to escape the world, now rode to build one for her. With her, two broken souls who found each other in a cruel world and stitched themselves back together with threads of trust, resilience, and love. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring real stories of hope and transformation to life. Before you go, I have one gentle request. Please comment below what moment in the story moved you the most.